is here. Wee Jamie, my Highland Coo. I start my video the day showing you around my room. This is wee Jamie, Highland Coo, call him that way. Glasgow here. Glasgow staff, books. Even I start learning Scottish Gaelic, as you see here. Wee next, look at my books. Some Celtic books, Glasgow. Here. Of course, Glasgow, Scotland. Next portion, books, Scottish flag, them Celtic stuff, flag, wee bed, and the rest, my kids' garden. And alright, it's me, your Glasgow genuine here. Some of yous, maybe probably not some of yous, but hundreds of yous, like Celtic fans, my fellow Celtic fans are gutted or frustrated. Because what happened 3 weeks ago, so as yesterday, is kind of unforgivable. Because I can't even describe my feelings here. I'm gutted and down. Because the way boys played in the recent games, it's just like no champions of Scotland, no leaders at all. They're not showing how to play football in Glasgow Celtic way. So, as I think, it's just their football is sloppy. They just slowed down. They're not answering to the actions straight away. When the rival scores, they just away, miss away. They don't even answer straight away. They don't even score goals. They don't even attack the rival's penalty box straight away. That's my point. Where are the champions? Where are our boys? It's just that imagine that the hoops, the Celtic Lions, they just hammered simply club like Dundee or Hearts, just like that. Last season, what happened this season? We are in a very similar situation. We played with Dundee, we lost, and again yesterday we Hearts. We lost again. What happened to us? What happened to Celtic? And let me just... I forgot. A Glasgow genuine here. In a traffic on it. Alright, so... I'm just wondering what has happened to our Celtic Lions. It wasn't just long ago, as I said, that Celtic brushed aside clubs like Dundee or Hearts, without breaking sweat. Aye. This season, we are tactically stronger, faster, better organised. No, the board has weakened us. They sold our best players, left the squad short, and have some nothing to improve. And let me remind you, there's 100 key players are injured. So Starter Vickers, he's out for a game. He's out for almost 5 months. Maeda is out on a bench. And Jota is as well out. So, key players on the bench. Plus, Celtic board is continuing that shit, bringing Celtic down. They sit on their cash, noses in the air, arses in the boardroom, ignoring the fans who built this club. Why? Why this is happening, man? Something's rotten in this team right now. This whole club. As you know, things aren't working tactically, mentally, or emotionally, even emotionally, man. So if this continues, we can forget about anything. We can forget about the title. We can forget about the Champions title. We can forget about the trophies. We can forget about that. We win any sort of cup, any sort of title this season. We can even forget that we win a treble. So before... Let me remind you that day the match with Dundee. Before kick-off, we were reminded that Dundee hadn't beaten us at Dens Park in 37 years. That felt like a curse. It was a curse, man, that day. I said, it's a fucking curse day. And that was the fact. The curse struck. The curse struck Dundee 2, Celtic 0. And the curse struck again yesterday. It was a first goal for Hearts, scored by Murray, Celtic player. Unfortunate goal. Then started with mentally, tactically, we went in. Defensively, it didn't work at all. No defense working at all. As I say, many times, hundreds of times, man. We have to, Celtic boys, they have to do something about defense. They have no right, no fucking right to allow too many goals to the rivals. And they did it yesterday. What the hell is happening? I mean, some people blame Brendan Rodgers, but I have to admit that I blame Celtic board 100%. It should have been the other way around, I remember. So it should have been Celtic celebrating. Like most fans, as I said as well, frustration is growing up around Celtic Park, around Celtic fans. So I'm gutted. I'm fucking raging. This club has fallen far. As you can feel that the disconnection with the stands, the guys on the pitch, those in the boardroom, as a disconnection, even the word for up, we're away at them. Celtic started brightly with Dundee. So as we hurt in the first half, they were a bit. Celtic started brightly, not pushing for the early, but sluggish. That was as well as yesterday's match. It was sluggish and sloppy even. So I've said before, you can't underestimate anyone in this league. You can't underestimate even as I said, you can't underestimate any club, even for the bottom of the table, Scottish Premiership table of the league. Every team wants to beat the champions, and Dundee, or so as Hearts yesterday, wanted it as much as anyone we've played lately. So they're better organised, more disciplined, and look hungrier. Meanwhile, we look shortly, as I said, I'm going to repeat it 100 times. Celtic look shortly in key areas. Thanks. Once again, man. A board refused to strengthen. So those are dubs seem to live in another world. So dreaming their nonsense, their pish, and patting themselves on the back while fans are treated as if it don't matter. We fans are treated if we don't matter at all. If we have no say. The arrogance is kind of poison the club. It harmed this season. Who knows how bad? But it might still get so. Our text broke down constantly. The pressing was weak. So as yesterday. So took the passing slow. The football was too passive. This isn't just about tactics. It's about leadership and belief, man. It's about whether the people in charge even care anymore. So when will the board wake up? Or better still, will they step down? Get out of the paradise. Take your complacency with you. You failed the fans and the players. Leave Celtic and 100 people actually keep a damn. I hope things might improve. So I thought yesterday as well. I hope things might improve. So I Celtic win in the second half. I tell myself Celtic will get me. I just kikar that was not berättat hur ser det ut. So as yesterday, 3-1 done. We Hearts. Surely would put up a fight. Where is the fight? Where is the will to fight? Where is that hunger in a Celtic squad? I can't say it. What's fucking going on there? But I was wrong, man. I praised them too early. They look disinterested, lethargic, totally devoid of passion. There was no pressing, no urgency, no spark. Without Maeda or Carter Vickers, we had no real goal threat to come off the bench. So why was the team so passive? Rodgers is top-class manager, but even he can't perform miracles if the squad isn't good enough or mentally switched off. The board, again, the board negligence has brought us here. Their lack of ambition, they have drained this club of momentum and confidence. So it feels like 1990s again, which older generations of Celtic fans remember. I'm sure you can recall it. 1990s, as Celtic fell down. So it feels like 1990s again. The bad old days before Fergus McNann saved us. And unless something changes soon, the nightmare is coming back to life. Celtic are losing points after points, game after game, dropping down the table and slipping away with the standards who unset. Fans are furious, and rightly so. We see the decline. Aye. Even if the board pretends not to. What is the fight? What is the will? What is the passion? Where is the strength we once had? What's going on with our champions? What is the Celtic we know and love? The board has to go before the further damage. My Celtic Lions, my beloved team, you can turn this around. It's in your hands. Aye? You can still fight for a title. You can still fight for a trophy, for a cup, for a Scottish Cup, for a Premiership Sports Cup, for a treble. But you need to find the hunger again. You need to find that will again. You need to find that passion again. That strength again. You need belief, man. In the long term, in the long run, I think you need a board that shares your ambition instead of killing it. Let's call it by its name. Celtic board kills Celtic. Would you agree? I'm sure you agree with this. Give us back Celtic board. Give us back your Celtic, our pride. Restore our confidence in the future. Because this club belongs to the fans. Right? Not the fools who are running it into the ground. Looking like pricks every time they're watching it. The fans continue to show the passion so many others lack. As I said, read articles on Celtic blog as well. But as you know, Celtic Lions wrote again on Thursday. As they won, we escaped the game as Stormgrass club in Europa League 2-1. Remember that? So I thought the champions came back. They show them who they are. But they broke it again yesterday. They lost again. Celtic Lions lost again yesterday. It hurts. The club which they were able to hammer, as I said at the very beginning. Clubs as Dundee or Hearts. What the teams clubs we Celtic can hammer just like that last season? But this season, no. We are the ones who dropping points, who dropping down the table. We're the ones who losing. So I'm still faithful that it'll change, because if this shade continues, if this Celtic board will be there, we must see fairly well for the title, for the treble, at anything this season. So I strongly believe that it'll change. I will see our beloved Celtic, or Celtic Lions once again. Alright, so your Glasgow genuine is coming back to us, to use. Let me tell you something about Battle of Culloden. I know it's a hard subject for some of you, but I should start it. The Battle of Culloden. As I say, for me, it shouldn't be called a battle, because it wasn't a battle. Because the British soldiers simply slaughtered Scots, real Scotsmen, fighters, honourable men. I call it a slaughtering. Would you remember that? So, Battle of Culloden, as I said, happened due to the Jacobite struggle. There are 4 Jacobite uprisings. You should know this. The Jacobite struggle to restore the Stuart monarchy, and the dispute over succession and just religion between the Stuart and Hanoverian dynasties. So the battle could have been avoided, as the Jacobite army was exhausted. First of all, Jacobite army was exhausted and weakened by a failed night attack, with many commanders arguing for a retreat, for Charles Edward Stuart refuses, insisting on decisive pitched battle on unfavourable terms. So let me start with this. Around 1688, the active immediately held in a glorious revolution. It was Parliament and the overwhelmingly Protestant political nation deposed the Roman Catholic King James II. His arbitrary actions and fostering a powerful standing army appear a presage establishing an absolute Catholic monarchy. So James's Protestant daughters, for his first marriage, Mary Anne, reigned after. But when Anne died around 1714, leaving no heir, Parliament replaced the Stuart dynasty with their German cousins, the Hanoverians. The claims of James II's Catholic son, James Francis Edward, the so-called Old Pretender, were ignored. Let me tell you about in 1703, 1715, 1719, the Old Pretender had repeatedly attempted, with either French or Spanish backing, to raise a banner. Pierre was banned. So, to raise the banner of revolt in Scotland, the home of the forefathers. But in 1745, despite its continued unpopularity, so the Hanoverian dynasty appeared secure. Also, when even news arrived, Old Pretender's son, Prince Charles Edward Stuart, the young pretender, he landed in Scotland with a handful of further gathering support amongst the Highland clans. There was initially little alarm. Let me tell you that Bonnie Prince Charlie, he was Charles Edward Stuart, called Bonnie Prince Charlie, he was a bit, not even a wee bit, he was off his head, off his fucking head. He was living in a bubble, in a magical bubble, Bonnie Prince Charlie. He didn't want to listen to anyone, to strategic plans, the tactics. He said, God will help us. God will help us. And God will lead us, and we win this battle. And he didn't want to listen to anyone. He was so stubborn. It's kind of his fault, don't you think? It's kind of his fault, if not his fault as well. I can see that he was a bit unhinged. But it changed rapidly when Charles Edward Stuart's Highland army defeated government troops in the Preston Pans in September 1745, and it entered England in November. So the 5,000 Highland army march it's for South Derby. So it failed to gather English support, and it was confronted by converging armies made up of the British troops, recall for fighting that war of the Austrian succession, 1740s-48. On the continent, on 5th of December, it began to retreat back to Scotland. After receiving French reinforcements, the Highlanders defeated the first government army sent against the Falkirk on 17th of January 1746. By the time a Highland army came out against the Duke of Cumberland's forces in Culloden Moor on 16th of April, it was disreputed, purely supplied, and suffering heavy desertion. Prince Charles Edward Stuart, now with armies, born and bred in Italy, possessed virtually no military experience before arriving in Scotland. However, this army early victories convinced the Highland charge we broadsword in hand. So it was irresistible. And this was those loggerheads. So it was a base of subordinate commanders, as I say so. Lord George Murray, who knew better. The Highland army mustered 5,000 men at Culloden. 2,000 were on operations elsewhere. Its mounted with arm was very weak, and most collection of 12 cannon available was no different. Was of different calibers and purely served. The British commander, William Augustus, Duke of Cumberland, enthusiastic soldier for a young age, known as Martyr Boy, was already Captain General of the British Army. So he was considered a incipient military genius, largely because in that boat conducted Fontenoy a year before, a notable epic defeat at the hands of the French. A strict disciplinarian, Cumberland restored the confidence of the defeat at Falkirk, introduced a new bayonet. So, tried to combat Jacobite, used a sword and a target small shield. His 9,000 men constitute a well-balanced force of horse and foot, supported by a 10 3-pounder, a cannon of 6 mortars. And if you're going to be at Culloden Moor, you see the flags, some red flags and blue flags. So red, mark the Cumberland's army, and blue ones, Jacobite's army. So, when it comes to battle itself, or a slaughtering, the Highland army is attempted to launch a surprise attack, like ambush, the night before a battle. I mean, why the Scotsman didn't attack, like, the British, like, surprisingly, like, they didn't use that tactic, like ambush. Why didn't they ambush them? I don't. They were pure perfect pure geniuses in ambushing the British. But the little men, struggling in the search of food, had not reached Cumberland's camp by daybreak and retreated to a field of 5 miles east of Inverness, Culloden Moor. The battle was ill-chosen, as I said, ill-chosen, lethal ground. Culloden Moor was potential lethal ground, ill-chosen, as afforded a clear field for Cumberland's artillery, but not for Highlanders. The Highlanders were cannot. The Highlanders were, let me say that, were cannonaded for nearly half an hour without effective reply. Orders to attack passed, slowed down a Highland chaotic chain of command, first of all. But eventually, Highlanders were unleashed. They charged across the 350 yards of ground, separating them from the enemy. On the left, the MacDonalds never reached the British line, but the large Highland, as I say, regiment of the right, clan chatting, smashing the barrels forth. And Munro, 37th foot with great force. So the reciprocate is very hand-to-hand combat. We'll need a few Highlanders fighting their way through to make that unveiling attack on Cumberland's second line. At this point, the cavalry command Lord Marquard's regiments of dragoons along the Kingston allied horse began with a way around Highlanders' flanks, converting the fate to that route. The pursuit extended all the way to Inverness. The actual fighting had lasted less than an hour. Well, talking about consequences, the Battle of Culloden, or slaughtering of Culloden, between 1,000 and 1,500 of Prince Charles Edward's men were killed. Few were wounded. Cumberland had drawn attention to enemy orders. Captured prior to battle and been suggested to Highlanders, but it didn't intend to take prisoners. The authenticity of the orders is disputed, but it seems like men had taken the hint. The casualties on Cumberland's side were significantly lower, 58 and 259 wounded. The young pretender escaped the battle and, after many adventures, reached France, but the Stuart was ruined forever. What is more, Battle of Culloden unfortunately marked the end of Scottish culture. Maybe I should call it the end of Highland culture, the end of clan system. So the end of clans, the end of Highland culture. The fucking English, they presented an abolition for Scots. The English government, fucking British government, they just even forbidden Scots to use their mother tongue, Scottish Gaelic. So Scottish Gaelic was out. Then they were forbidden to wear a kilt, traditional kilt, Scottish tartan, kilt, or play bagpipes, play any kind of Scottish music. So that's how I think British done. It's unforgivable, and how they treated or treat Scots. It's unforgivable. That's how I call the English perverts. Sorry about that, but it's true, very true. How you can abolish true Scotsmen, like say no for Scottish Gaelic, using Scottish Gaelic, indigenous tongue of Scotland. It's a beautiful language. I'm learning it, by the way. How can you say no to wear kilts or playing bagpipes? I can't imagine it. So to sum it up, Battle of Culloden marked the end of Highland culture or clan system. I still can't believe it. So I think the Act of Union around 1707, that was before Battle of Culloden, but I think Scotland was forced to join to England, to join to the UK. They were forced. Plus, I think Scotland, were more independent and free before the fucking Union. The Act of Union with the English and the UK. So it's before Battle of Culloden. Because consequences of Battle of Culloden are as well. Highland clearances. Battle of Culloden means as well Highland clearances as well. From the 1750s up to 1860s. The bloodshed. The poverty, famine, every war. I can't forgive the British what they done to Scots. I never forgive them. Reasons for the battle. Dynastic or religious conflict at first. The battle's recrimination film struggled to restore the Catholic Stuart dynasty to the thrones of England, Scotland and Ireland, which had been lost to the British Hanoverians. Second, opposition in Union. I mentioned that fucking Act of Union, 1707. So let me tell you, before, Scotland was forced to sign Act of Union in 707 by the British. And I think Scotland was more independent and more free before the Act of Union and Battle of Culloden. And Battle of Culloden marks as well fighting for independence. So, see, Scotsmen were fighting for independence since 18th century. So they lost that independence, signing that Act of Union up. Alright, it's another opposition of Union in 707. So many Jacobites were, as I say, motivated by strong opposition of Acts of Union. So that created a kingdom of Great Britain. With Stuart restoration being seen as the only way to reverse it. So the final stages of Jacobite rising, 1745-6, had been in trouble. Since the Jacobites decided to turn back to London in April 1736. Jacobite forces were depleted, exhausted, in need of supplies, where the government forces were well arrested and well supplied. One battle could have been avoided. First of all, a failed night march. So on the night before the battle, Jacobite forces attempted a surprise night attack on the government, but failed to do plan for it, and then troops getting lost. So exhaustion and lack of resources. The failed march left many Jacobite soldiers exhausted, scarred, further weakening their already depleted forces. Jacobite commanders advise many of Charles Edward Stuart commanders plead with him to avoid a pitched battle, recognising the tactical disadvantage, the risk of devastating defeat. Stuart's refusal to retreat, he was so fucking stubborn. Despite the dire situation, Charles Edward Stuart refused to retreat, believing his own rightful claim to throne meant to be no engaging in guerrilla warfare. He insisted on a pitched battle on the way to Culloden Moor, where his army was in severe disadvantage. Military disadvantage. The Jacobite army was in a terrible state, man, with many troops still scarred, low on supplies and exhausted. In contrast, the government forces were arrested, well supplied and, well disciplined. A lack of viable alternative, man. The Jacobites had been driven to Highlands, with their supply lines and support dwindling. A decisive confrontation was inevitable if they wanted to continue their campaign. So what went wrong in the Battle of Culloden, as I call it, slaughtering of Scotsmen and destroying their culture, language, so it's everything they hold dear. The Jacobites lost the Battle of Culloden due to being outnumbered and outgunned, fighting unfavourable, boggy terrain, a combination of poor leadership, exhaustion, a lack of supplies. The government well trained and equipped army, particularly its artillery, inflicted heavy casualties before the Jacobites got even close to a hone-in-hone fight. A third night attack, previous evening, also left the Jacobite forces tired and hungry. Tactical strategic errors. Ill-chosen battlefield, as I mentioned. The open boggy moor was ideal for the British Army's artillery, and the muskets were hindered and Jacobite charge. So, as I said, man, they lost cross muddy open ground under fire. So, poor leadership as well. The Jacobite command was disorganised, first of all. The unclear orders, lack of coordination, man. A planned night attack on the government camp the previous evening failed, which probably caused by Jacobites to miss the battle entirely. Lack of resources, lack of food supplies. Vulnerable to artillery. The Jacobite position left them vulnerable. The British Army cannonade reduced their ranks significantly before it even reached the enemy lines. So, now, let me give you some curiosities about Battle of Culloden. So I'll share it with you. As I said, Charles was heading to meet the Duke of Cumberland troops in the Highlands to prevent the for taking Inverness. However, many Jacobite troops were still for Inverness and urgently summoned to join the prince. Aye. Food and money were in short supply and the army was not in full force. The commanders thought I could win the battle in that state. And did you know as well that the Jacobite soldiers were on rations of just 3 biscuits per day? How can you win the battle? How can you not be weak if you eat just 3? If you're on a ration of just 3 biscuits a day. What's the matter, Pish? In contrast, Cumberland marches troops for Aberdeen in good order. They were closing on the Jacobite army for surely with the decisive battle. Morales high as they camped at Nairn on 15th of April. Cumberland's 25th birthday, by the way. He gave his soldiers extra rations of drinks and celebration. So, rather than a respect battle, their weekend stay that Jacobites agreed. So, final desperate plan, surprise night attack. So, this could be Mick Brown for a sleeping government. Troops were having no much for Jacobites. So, in reality, the hungry, exhausted Jacobite column stumbled along the dark. Their progress was too slow, and they had no turn back. As dawn broke, but it was not inevitable. Even now, there was a time Jacobites to draw back to Inverness to regain their strength at a safe distance. But arguments broke out as senior commanders. Even the French envoy pleaded that Prince to withdraw. But the Prince was determined and took no fate there and then. Many soldiers were exhausted for a night march. Many for lack of food supplies, not. But others were looking for food area to arrive in the area. Some Jacobite leaders favoured a retreat, the high ground south of the River Nairn. The Prince preferred to fight their hands to so on the moor at Culloden. With Cumberland's army as side papers, they played that their army struggled into possession. At around 1 p.m, the Jacobite artillery opened the fire, the government soldiers. The government responded with their own cannon. And the Battle of Culloden began. Bombarded by a cannon shot of mortar bombs, the Jacobite clans held back, waiting for an order to attack. Well, as they moved forward, through driving rain, smoke, gunfire, grape shot. Upon reaching the government lines, some fought ferociously, Many others never reached their goal. This time, the government troops were prepared for a dreaded Highland charge. Under brutal gunfire, faced with deadly bayonets, the Jacobites were forced to retreat. Hardly an hour had passed between the first shots and the final flight of his army. It was the shortest battle ever happened. Did you know that Culloden was the last pitched battle on British soil? In less than an hour, around 1,300 men were slain, with 1,250 of them Jacobites. Was a battle necessary? No. Let me remind you that next year marks the 208th anniversary of Battle of Culloden. So 280 years after the Battle of Culloden. Next year, so we'll be celebrating that. And this year, and I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to record my next video, my next video for real Culloden Moor, as I'm heading there in November, so stay tuned in there as well for that. As that'll be peach, mum. That'll be peach. That'll be brill. I think so. No, I'll tell you. As I mentioned, the Highland clearances from the 1750s, 1860s, after the Battle of Culloden, saw disruption of traditional life and dispossession of land Farmland is seen as being for a profit supporting the residents, intent of maximising their rental field landlords. Moved tenant form as a Highland Farms into coastal crofting community, so displaced tenants were expected to be employed in fishing, quarrying, the kid industry. Landlords were typically clean leaders who, in pre-clearance times, lose their hand of their land to taxmen, but it sublet to peasant farmers. However, the Highland clearances saw not only economic change but social engineering. And the crudest form, it also ushered in the demise of clan social system. As I mentioned, Battle of Culloden marked the end of clan system. So was Highland culture. Fucking English perverts. So now a little bit of reading now. As I said, I started learning Scottish Gaelic, so I teach you 2 expressions a day, or even 1. We reading, we Glasgow accent practice, right? So the higher you get, there's a mere I just say, but I didn't want to get above. As I hear of a sparrow, up in the east of Freas, where I went to the Springburn Park. It was at Sahida, there was snow on his wings. No, I know my limits. And it is ended up doing fine. Anyhow, I had plenty to see about Barach I was so good at the streets and that people and then the traffic. So I could see the bridges, the factories, the schools, the football parks. I could see university, the hill away, the FS Reservoir, Mangi. I to the north of the fancy barrel collection away, the south. It was like a hill world under my wing. Was there always the church spires and the towers? All my meat. As you see, I'm the libraries, as men's boozers. So imagine, hill buildings, just for books, just things with a lot of learning. Ready, waiting there's guide in the sky. So I thought to myself, the ground folk, I made this mare of as ground space. There's a sky, the forests and the Dutch mountains. Aye, there's no doubt, ground man did a clever kind of space, isn't it? It could do all sorts of things, marvellous things. But there's always one big thing that can't do. He can't fly. He's stuck to the ground. I think I could doing ground folk. I might just be a wee stupid sparrow. I'm better in the sky whenever I feel like it, so I just get a fuck myself sword in a higher passerday. Right enough a bit in the air to Allah. Then after a bit, where did my leg go? As the slightest thing, but it tell me that I was the time to get him. So I let my glide down nice and slow. The late afternoon, there's a run pay by the car. I was just waiting for a ways now, place ready for me, so instead, I hardly got my bacon hours. My mother was wanting me after being. So away, so long, so sure I can got me. Then a further, that I came and gave me a ride blocking. I landed some of the scullery. We made a house for us. He chirruped, but it doesn't mean we laugh in houses. There are plenty of parks in Glasgow, and mean as scratch your wings, and they had thing that just feeding the air we bring him back to the mother. I thought, see, what you were doing, and dear decorating, we're foraging, we're a supper for you. My lad, there's learning you. I wasn't the welcome I expected. After that, the lady open windows, into that, what my feather are going to Barbie Parks, were about a chance to forage was for a day. Head for a windy, it's alright. Open spaces there are where I could pick my way, extra bits of vegetables, or my like allotments, a better class, and the sects. Don't just usually get about backcourts, parks were great. We don't want for parks in Glasgow, but there's my 50 of them, at least somehow. I know, like her relatives are missing them. For our cousins, they're Rookin Lane. And there's Nero. But don't speak to us. The stay in Alexandra Park was at East Empty. But I think there are step about a because they had their nests and red stain tenements, like Kennehill Square, and not in Parkhead, grey stains, like yours. There was no disappointed. Where you got the eggs that have to be content. We had to speculate rest to us. Right. Alright, man. So, your Glasgow genuine now is going to teach you some phrases. The now I tell you, Fiskerma. I should have told that before I started recording. So, Fiskerma means good afternoon or good evening. All right, feast karma. Then, if I want to say, Hamireshte, Slan light or Martian light. I mean, see you after. See you after. And bye. So, my next video. My next video will be on next Monday. So stay tuned. Your Glasgow genuine Celtic Maddie Traffic Kune is coming back on Monday. So see you on Monday. A beautiful brilliant night. And Hamirishte Martian light. Hagel a Love you.